Hello, my name is Giorgio Morales, and I will be talking about our work on the creation of fertilizer management zones and their counterfactual analysis. To begin with, let me explain what we mean when we talk about fertilizer responsivity. Suppose that we have a field and we are focusing on the analysis of two different sites. For each site, somehow we generate a fertilizer curve, or in this case, a nitrogen curve. These curves tell us the estimated yield value that we would obtain if we apply different fertilizer rates. So suppose that we obtain curves that look very similar. First, even though we would be obtaining different productivity values for each site, we can say that they are reacting in a very similar way to different values of the fertilizer rate. So we are saying that they're showing similar fertilizer responsivity. Whereas in this case, we can say that the responsivity of the red curve is significantly lower than that of the blue curve. So we are going to focus on the problem of creating management zones. A management zone is an area of the field that is assumed to have similar behavior, and therefore they usually receive similar treatments. The problem is that no previous work has considered to use the concept of fertilizer responsivity to create or to define the management zones. We argue that all sites within a management zone should display similar or comparable responsivity to different fertilizer rates. And also another limitation is that none of the existing methods provide explanations as to why a specific site of the field was assigned to a specific management zone. So our contribution first is the proposal of a generation method that accounts for within field variability of fertilizer responsivity, and for that we are going to use neural networks that were trained from observed data. And then we are presenting a post hoc explainability method, meaning that once the model is trained, we extract explanations from it in the form of counterfactual explanations to reveal the influence of which covariate factors are more important on the assignment on the management zone. So, in a nutshell, we train neural networks and we use them to generate end response curves by asking the model what will happen if we use different fertilizer rates. Once that we generated those fertilizer curves, we want to analyze the shape of these curves, and we are going to use a technique that is called FPCA, Functional Principal Component Analysis, that basically encode the pattern of the curve. Then we create a distance metric that basically conveys the difference in fertilizer responsivity. Using that new metric, we use a clustering algorithm that is called fast-easy-means, basically because there's no clear or hard difference between one cluster or one management zone in comparison to the next one, because there's always going to be gradual changes in soil variability and therefore gradual changes in fertilizer responsivity. So applying that technique to this field and choosing 4 clusters or 4 management zones, where we're going to obtain these results. So here you can say that the shapes within each cluster are similar, and the same happens for this this is a winter wheat field, and both fields are located in Montana, but in different counties, so they have different behavior. In this case, we use only 3 management zones, and again, the shape of the curves that we obtain are very different. We can say that the responsivity of the curves that belong to cluster 1 is significantly lower than that of the curves in cluster 3. So now we're going to focus on the counterfactual explanations. And here we're basically asking what variables need to be altered so that the fertilizer responsivity is going to change just enough so that now it's going to be clustered into a different management zone. So This problem is going to be tackled using a multi-objective optimization technique that uses genetic algorithms. And in this case, for example, we find that if we change the VB variable, which is related to moisture, if we increase it, then we are increasing the fertilizer responsivity. And now this curve belongs to a new or to a different management zone in which the curves present a higher responsivity. We can repeat the same idea for all points within each management zone to obtain individual relevance of the features. And the idea is that the more often a variable is changed or altered during the counterfactual explanation generation, it means that it's more important than the rest of the variables. So in this case, the terrain slope has been selected to change more times than the rest of the variables, and that means that it is more relevant for the management zone assignment. And that makes sense because the slope is related to the fertilizer runoff. The more slope, the more runoff, and therefore lower fertilizer responsivity. And analyzing all of these results, we can obtain the top 5 feature combinations that are more important for management zone assignment. So, in conclusion, we presented the first method that is based on fertilizer responsivity to create management zones, and our experiments demonstrated the effectiveness of our method to cluster field points into management zones that have similar end response curve shape. Then our counterfactual explanation method allows us to understand the impact that some variables have on the assignment of one specific management zone for a given field site.